got my shape ready. Everything is dry. I've gone ahead and made my sketch. And now I'm ready to start to transfer it onto the shape. So this may be something you do not quite get to until next week, and that's okay. But I want to kind of show you why we're doing this piece of paper. So I can kind of feel and make sure that it's going to fit pretty okay on there. So I'm going to go ahead with my pencil, and I'm drawing kind of lightly. I'm kind of sketching. I'm not trying to carve. I'm just kind of trying to get an indentation of what I am going to carve. Now what I am drawing right now is what I'm going to carve and is what is going to be white. Okay? I'm going to make it so that the white lines are just like a little drawing that I make. And all these tiny details, like the little shading inside the mushroom, I can kind of more freehand that, so it's okay if it's not perfect. But like the general shape, I want it to fit pretty well. I can feel that I'm kind of going off my edge a little bit. I think my shape changed slightly after I kind of messed with it. So I'm just kind of fixing it as I go. I suggest that you do this even if you feel like the world's most confident person when it comes to clay or drawing, because you'll have spent quite some time on these, even though it's just 2 simple steps, making them and painting on them. It will feel like you spent some time on them, okay? So what I've got now is my image. It's hard for y'all to see, and that's a good thing because you shouldn't see it right now. But I've got my image kind of engraved on there a little bit, and I can see well. One thing that I also did too was I actually shaded with my pencil on the back. Have any of y'all ever done this before? It's like a graphite transfer. It's pretty cool how that works. So I did this. I sketched on the back, and that helped me when I drew like this. It actually transferred graphite onto my clay, which doesn't hurt it. So if you want to do that, you can do it too. It's just another level of kind of putting it on there where I feel like I'm not bearing down too much into my clay. All right. So now I've got my image on there. I'm going to choose a tool that's got a little bit smaller of a loop. Like this is a really good little tool. You can even use a tool, just anything that's got a point, any kind of loop tool where you can use kind of the little corner of it is good. And remember, I put those over on that table right there. So I'm going to start out just kind of carving with it. I want to try to get the cleanest line I can. And I'm going to kind of sweep it off as I go. Remember, I can't put anything back on, so once it's gone, it's gone. I need to make sure I'm happy with it. But I try to use kind of even pressure as I work. And I'm just carving out. I try not to be really aggressive with when I sweep with it like that, because I don't want to peel off too much. But this is how I'm kind of starting to draw. So I draw with it and carve with it just like kind of how I draw. You do want to kind of pull it a little bit more rather than hold it like a pencil, kind of like I just did. But you can see kind of how big my lines are now just by me using this tiny tool. So that's why I want to try to use a corner of a tool. And I want to try to turn it the way I need it to be, because it's not quite as detailed as a pencil. And it's really fun once you kind of get carving. Now I want my dots on my mushroom, my kind of spots, I want them to be white. And I'm going a lot faster than you probably will want to, because you want to be careful. So I could start to kind of scrape out in here. But I would want it to be very, very even as much as I can, unless you kind of want it to be kind of more aligned. And I'm not going back and forth, I'm just pulling it. And I'm trying to, again, just make it kind of even. So y'all can see how I'm starting to kind of carve out to make that more white. So I try to make my lines side to side as much as I can. Again, this is a lot like if you've seen people do printmaking, like carving lino stamp pads, lino cut pads. Good to be watching. I like the look of all the lines next to each other. If you don't like them, you can go the opposite way, kind of like cross hatching to carve them out. And it might help your texture also. So what I would have left is finishing the spots. I would carve out my lines for my insides, and then I would carve my grass. and then I would move on, okay? Our goal today is making our shapes, letting them firm up and get dry, adding some slip to them, and then working on our sketches on the newsprint, okay? Do y'all have any questions? Y'all got it? All right. I've got those colors up here for when you're ready. You're rolling out your shapes. You're just working on your circles or your squares. They're right up here. Y'all can get moving. All of this paper is up here too. I looked at everybody's sketches that turned them in. I generally agreed with you. Whatever you wanted to do, I agree with you. I think they look great. I did give you feedback on there if you want to see which one I told you about, or we can chat about it too. I loved your bees. Are you going to do your bees? It was very fun. I like that. Okay, good deal. All right, so did you put your initials and number in the back? Awesome. If they're not too flimsy, bring them in here and we'll put them in here. Okay, good. All right, bring one in here. We'll put them in there.
You have a Band-Aid?
That white first aid kit by my door. So your goal is making shapes and putting slip on them today. That would be a good goal to be at. Making shapes, putting slip on them. That's like where we should be to be caught up.
Yeah, register for
Put it like you're in a little Ziploc. That's fine. Yes, that's fine. You remember where my notes passes are? Yep. No, you don't need to. That's fine. Drew asked a good question. Do you need to stir up the slip and engobe? You don't really have to. It works a little better like paint the more consistent it is. If you feel like it's a ton of water sitting at the top and color at the bottom, it might help to take the end of the paintbrush and stir it a little bit. That way your hairs aren't getting all gloopy. And you can just kind of wipe it off with a paper towel. So remember, try to keep those cloths clean. I'll show y'all toward the end how we're going to pack up our coasters so that they stay good for Tuesday. There should be a little box that you see with little shapes in there. Try to kind of spread them out. And if there's not room in there somewhere, put them on a cart. Just spread out. Thank you. Say one of these I can write with. There you go. You're welcome. All right, so since I'm not done with mine, but I'm coming back to it, I'm going to put it in my bag. This is just a little trick. Y'all aren't putting them in your Ziploc, but I do this with my board. I'm getting a little wet paper towel and I'm sticking it in my bag because this is getting kind of more firm. This just keeps the bag kind of sweaty and gives it a little kind of like wet environment in there. So it's not like closing up with a bunch of air.